Welcome everyone to 21 Soul here at the Rope-A-Dope Room. This is for me an historic day. I'm welcoming very special guest Baba, Umar, and Abiodun from The Last Poets. And I'm here with Mr. Jamal Takuma. Welcome everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure being here, man.
Thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us here. I want to tell everybody real quickly that The Last Poets take their name from the words of a great South African poet whose name I absolutely cannot pronounce, but also known as Bra Willy. Is this correct?
Well, they called him Little Willy. His name was Kelpetsi Kokosili.
Thank you so much. I tried. I want to read something. There was a quote from him that I read on the internet. And it says, "We will be destroying the symbols which have facilitated our captivity. We will be creating and establishing symbols to facilitate our necessary and constant beginning." And this really struck me, and I thought accurately represented at least what I'm understanding when I'm listening to The Last Poets. There's so much history, there's so much to talk about, and it's too much for the amount of time that we have. So I'm going to encourage viewers to read the liner notes here and do the research and get involved, dig in. But I want to begin, and I want to get to know each of you. Maybe we can start at the beginning. I want to hear, Baba, where are you from?
I'm from New York City, Harlem.
From
Born in Harlem Hospital, raised in Harlem, worked in Harlem, still live in Harlem.
And there you go. It's changed.
It's changed
dramatically
quite a
in
bit.
the time.
Dramatically, yes, it has. I mean, for the better and for the better on the downside, but on the upside. You know, people being pushed out of their homes and their community, and that's not helping us right now. In fact, they tried to push me out, but I was able to withstand the push.
Good.
So I pushed back.
Good. Umar?
I'm from Akron, Ohio, Midwestern funk boy, you know. And I happened to go to this Black Arts Festival in Ohio, and you know, I went from my street thing into the Black Nationalist thing, and I was head of security, you know. For the Black Arts Festival.
Interesting.
Yeah, at this college. What was the name of the college again?
Antioch
College. And so I was head of security at the desk, cause you know, just a brother with mom make him head of security, cause he's a crazy nigga. He'll really take care of us and protect us. And so I happened to be at the desk when Abiodun came up. You know, when he was younger, he had so you think his voice is blusterous, but when he was younger, he get over and boom, it hits you with, like his voice hits you, it's just something, I think it intimidated a lot of people. But I was cool. I said, okay, we said, listen, I'm here for security, man. You gotta check, all your stuff here and let me check you, because I'm here, I'm trying to protect the sisters and the brothers and all this from something happening here. So he kept telling me, no, man, I'm one of the last ports, I gotta get in. But I said, no, brother, you gotta get checked in. And he said, no, I'm one of the last ports. So at that time, I had a 45 and a 38 to my side. So I pulled up my jacket and said, listen, you either check in or check out. So he said, okay. So he did, he let me check in. But then when he got to his bailiwick, and he got on stage, he said, who's that crazy motherfucker y'all got out the door? He gonna kill all us before the white people do.
On the mic?
Yeah, on the mic. Yeah, he did, on the mic. So, but when him and Guyland Kane and Felipe did what they did on drums, the poetry, I was awed. It just messed me up. So after, the gig, I went back and I talked to him. I said, we apologize, and we talked. And he said, well, yeah, listen, we got this locked up in Harlem, man. If you ever decide you want to come through. And somehow I had to get out of Akron because Akron police had figured me as, one of the head leaders of the riots in my town. So I had to get out of there. And this thing, I know I lost my job at Firestone Tire and Rubber. I got fired. You know, I think I was one of the first black people to be called a terrorist. You know, because this manager I had, Breckenridge, he didn't like me. I didn't like him. He said, "Man, yeah, we don't want no terrorists in here." It's the first time I heard that word. So I left. I got fired. I ain't got no money now. I ain't got no job. I ain't got no way to get out of here. So I pawned my sister's record player for $25 to get a ticket. At that time, a ticket from Akron, Ohio to New York was $25, but you stopped off on Midway and you stopped off in Pittsburgh to get you some meat. So I got $9.78. The ticket was $15, but then when I got the food, it was $9.78. So when I landed on the corner of 8th Avenue and 42nd Street, that time I just had 22 cents in my pocket. Wow. But to see, the deepest thing, because what Doom said, I looked like little Lloyd Fauntleroy because I had on this strange woolen jacket and I looked, you know, because I didn't have no clothes. I just put on thing and got out. So what happened was that this Jamaican came up to me thinking I'm stupid playing the okey doke with the, you know, the handkerchief. Telling me, hold this for me, man. I want you to hold this for me. I want you to hold this for me because I'll be right back. And I looked in, you know, there was some dollar bills in there. So as soon as he took off, now me being the ex-track star, ex-football star, bam! I took off. And so I hid behind this park on, 43rd Street, 9th Avenue. And I heard him coming with the police. I'll be on mine. He went up this way. He got my money, man. He got my money. So I said, damn, you know, I got $25. So I got on the train and I went looking for him. But that's how, you know, my adventure into Manika Doom and becoming a last poet. You know, a little funky kid from the West trying to go, you know, become a last poet.
Beautiful.
I'm from Ohio as well. I was born in Ohio. I was born in Cincinnati. But I didn't stay there long because I guess the spirit was saying I had to come to New York. At 3 years old, my aunt, who was the light of my life, because I was born out of wedlock, and when you're born back in that time, and you have a child out of wedlock, it's like you're born in darkness. Nobody, a woman just wasn't accepted if she wasn't married and had a child. My mother was the virgin of the church, and she let some dude who I've never met, who I don't know till this day, come join the church, and I understand he even had a wife and kids, and he got with my mother, and I was born. And I can tell you, as a child, I remember being in darkness all the time. And when my aunt came over, her sister, she would open up the curtains, she'd lift me up, she'd kiss me, she'd hug me. It was love at first sight. I loved her to death. And then one day, according to what my Aunt Vivian says, I'm outside and I see her with a suitcase. And I guess even at 3 years old, I knew a suitcase meant somebody's going someplace. And they say I ran upstairs and I came downstairs with my cowboy hat, my boots, my gun, my holsters, and my guns are in my holsters, and I had on my cowboy vest. I was like a little black cowboy, and I'm telling everybody I'm going to New York with Aunt Beanie. And everybody looked at each other as if to say, this kid is serious.
Wow.
And my mother and her sister, my aunt, got together and packed up a little bag and put me in the car. And I came to New York when I was 3 years old.
That's the first time I heard that story.
Yeah, wow. But that was how it began. And I was raised in Queens, and it was, I think I was really very fortunate because her husband's name was Joseph Davis, and her name was Elvina, and they were in their 40s. So I had mature people raising me, and I think that made a big difference in terms of the values that I received. They were old school values because my father had a rule that said, I got to be up at 5:30. Everybody in this house better be up at 5:30. I mean, you know, and like you had to say good morning, but I had to brush my teeth first. I couldn't get up and leave my bed unmade. It had to be made. I mean, there were certain values, and we had to have breakfast together. I mean, these are values that we just don't have today.
My dad was 47 when I was born, so I can understand.
Yeah, so I was raised.
It almost skips a generation.
Yeah, man, we had some strict rules, and I learned how to work. And I'm gonna tell you something. That really, of all the things that set me straight, is my father gave me, against my better judgment, against what I wanted. He made me work. So I have a work ethic today because of what he did to me. And he brought Savannah, Georgia to Queens. If there was any vacant land near our house, he turned it into a farm. And I was the farmer.
Wow.
And we had built a barbecue pit. There's nothing I can't grow. There's nothing I cannot build. I can even take a car apart and put it together, but I can't stand it because I get my hands dirty. And I used to have a problem with getting my hands dirty. And I would get dirt on my fingernails, and I would take something and try to pick the dirt out, and he'd smack me and say, "What was wrong with you? Your hands are made to work. Better stop picking on your hands. Your hands are made to work, boy. What are you trying to do? What, you a pretty boy or something?" He was hard. He was hard.
Wow.
He was, but it was love I couldn't understand. And at the time, and I hated him. I'm very, very honest. I really hated him. You know, Umar talks about his father a lot and how he had issues with him. I had issues with my father too. But I knew that my mother would always tell me in so many ways that, you know, you think Joe doesn't love you. But when you got sick that time because you had an overdose of pills given to you, his sister had given me an overdose of pills. She was crazy. She didn't read my mother gave her instructions and she misread the instructions anyway. I was having convulsions. And my father picked me up, put me in the car, and he got me to the hospital right away. He did not stop for a red light.
Wow.
And my mother reminded me, she said, "Remember when Joe got you to the hospital?" He said, "That he loved you. He didn't want you to die. And you think he hated you." Because I would get beatings. I mean, I was raised in a very strict, stern environment.
As you got older and started to understand and view the world and the struggles, did that help you understand?
Yes, it did.
Why Joe was?
It helped me
the way he
understand
was?
why he treated me the way he did. Yes, because the world is not an easy place, and he prepared me for hard. I mean, there's nothing you can do to me that I can't handle. I was in prison, and they put me in solitary confinement, and it was like a piece of cake. Prison itself was a piece of cake. It was not. I didn't suffer like most people do. I mean, first of all, they get up.
I'm not going to try it.
No,
If I can help it.
No, I'm serious. The
I don't recommend it.
count time in prison is at 6 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what I look like? Do you know what I look like at 6 o'clock? I've been up already.
Ready to go.
I've shaved. I've showered. I got my clothes on. The CO would ask me, did I go to bed? I said, yes, I went to bed. And I had nice dreams, too. And I did. I had no problem. Prison was no problem. As a matter of fact, it was time out. The only thing that messed me up while I was in prison was the album came out, the very first album. And
First
so
Last
guys
Cause
are
album.
coming in to prison in North Carolina, quoting me, and I had to keep my mouth shut because I was in there for robbing the Klan. And I didn't need no more publicity I had enough publicity. I didn't need any more publicity. And I had to tell one guy who I was, and he didn't believe me. He thought I had lost my mind. He said, "These guys are from New York." I said, "Well, that's why you call me New York, because I'm from New York." He says, "No, New York." He says, "This album, you were in here when I got in here. This album came out before." He says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Oh my God." He really says I'm crazy.
Wow.
And I told him, I said,
Well,
"Listen."
that's probably pretty fortunate.
I said, "Your wife comes to visit you every Sunday." He was from Charlotte. Name was Jonathan Bird. I said, "Your wife comes to visit you every Sunday. Have her bring the album cover with her to the back hall. And you look on the cover and come and tell me who I am." He comes back with tears in his eyes. "Man, you my hero. What did you do to him?" I said, "I committed a crime. That's why I'm in here." And he's staring at me. But see, that's one thing you can't do to another inmate. You can't stare at an inmate in prison. You might be able to get away with that on the street, but you can't do that in prison because that looks like a setup. Like you're trying to make a bitch out that person. You got some interest in that person that's not exactly kosher.
Or you get ready to fuck him up.
Yeah, or you getting ready to do something to him. And he's staring at me, so I had to say, "Bird, you got this." "I can't believe you." I said, "Bird, believe it." I said, "And don't tell everybody. It's between you and I. I don't need nobody to know." Wow. But those are some of my beginnings. And during that time, I had left the Last Poets because I did not feel like I was a real revolutionary. I felt like I was a fake revolutionary, to be honest. I wanted to get my hands dirty, bloody, or something. I wanted to do something. I was raised in a middle-class neighborhood by hard-working parents, and I was supposed to go to college and become a doctor. And now I'm caught up with being this last poet, and we're considered to be the young guns of poetry in Harlem. And I love Harlem because we used to go there every Sunday for church. But people are giving us all kind of accolades for being revolutionaries. I hadn't done anything revolutionary.
Right.
So there was a group of young ladies called the Harlem Committee for Self-Defense, and they had a whole plan of this land encroachment by the government, and they wanted to take over this block at 125th Street.
Owned by the Rockefellers.
It was owned by the Rockefellers, and they needed some manpower. And they asked me to go get some watermelons for because that was their plan to get people onto the site for a big demonstration, because they wanted to stop the bulldozers on July 1st. And so I got 38 watermelons. On my way out, then I realized I could have one on my lap. So I got another one. I asked the guy, I said, "Sell me another one." He said, "I'll give it to you." I had 39 watermelons, came back. They cut up enough slices to give every single person in Harlem a slice. And they had people come onto the land and get their watermelon. And then Marlena Franklin, who happens to be Cicely Tyson's daughter, gave me a bullhorn. She said, "You got a big mouth, organize the people." And so I did all the little chants that I knew, where the fire burning. We chanted, we had some drummers playing, and we had about maybe 1,000 people on the land. And then the bulldozers did not come, because if anybody remembers the 60s, mostly all of the summer months of the 60s were riot seasons. There were riots
Late 60s, yeah.
throughout in Detroit, Chicago, New York City,
Philly.
and Philadelphia. There were riots all over the place. So Rockefeller said, "Nope, those folks they're going to tear up Harlem. Let them stay there, and we'll get them off when it's more convenient." And so when they did not show up that morning, for some reason, I said, "This is reclamation site number 1." And we stayed there. Now, Umar says I was wearing the same
You
dashiki.
wore the same dashiki, the same sandals for about 2 or 3 weeks. I wondered if you was taking a bath. See, and doing all this time, the album is getting ready to come out. Alan Douglas is getting ready to put the first album out. So me and Jamal, we constantly go to the come on man, the album getting ready to come out, man. No man, we're gonna win this, man. We're gonna win this battle. We just all at us. And they had, had a flag, the red, green flag.
Yeah, we had it up. We snatched the red, white, and blue flag out of his hand and put up the red, black, and green.
He said, "But dude, come on, man, come on." So he said, "No, okay." So we just left him alone, man.
I told him, I said, "I don't want to be a last foot." I said, "I'm doing what I got to do." And then, so I had to leave Harlem because the FBI had me. First of all, they impounded my car. They thought I was driving it. I loaned it to somebody to go pick up something that was being offered to us. They beat him up, gave him a concussion. He was in the hospital, and they took my car. Said they found a gun in the car, they found bullets, and they found drugs. I had my gun on me. I had a 38 Sumno Special, and I had it with me. I don't leave my gun in the glove compartment of the car, and I've never sold drugs, so I knew this was a setup. But they were going to use all of that to come on to the site, clear out everybody looking for me. So I was told by the council that I was hot and I had to get out. So
and when I finally got to New York doing, he got me a place to stay. He hooked me up with Marlena at Sissy Tyson's. I never knew that was Sissy Tyson's place. But then he got me hooked up with this place called Alamet Hotel. It was for black students who lived off campus because they couldn't live on campus. So it was in this place on
71st Street and Broadway.
Broadway called Alamet Hotel. So then he got me hooked up in there, and so I know I had come to become a last port. So actually, when I hit him, I told him, I want to be the last port. He said, "Well, you do." He said, "Okay." So the next time he came down to talk to the students, he said, "Listen, there's a brother here from Ohio, and I'm going to let y'all. I'm the only one where the people decided I became a last port."
Umar's timing was perfect because he came when the group was breaking up.
It was
because when he came to the East Wing, Kane was still there because he came upstairs. And I saw him, he looked like Oliver Twist, he had the suitcase and everything. It was really weird. And Kane, right away, he says, "Get that spy out of here." And I knew he wasn't.
Because you already know.
I knew he wasn't. Yeah, I knew he wasn't a spy. So I sent him on downstairs to the car. And I said, "My car's in front of the place. You get in the car, I'll be downstairs shortly." So I came, and so Kane thought I was crazy. He said, "You trust a nigga with your car?" I said, "He ain't gonna take the car." I said, "He's all right." I mean, for some reason we bonded. I don't know if it was because of our age similarity. I don't know what.
We both were from Ohio.
But we both from Ohio. But I didn't have any. I had no feelings about him being weird. You know, but Kane thought he was a spy. He was with the FBI.
Could be because you had your conflict.
Yeah.
And you resolved it
So,
right
but-
out of the gate.
Yeah, but
And you mentioned some things about the struggle and about resistance and about fighting a system. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, this is a long time ago.
This
right?
what?
It's been a long
That's
time.
50 years ago.
That you've been fighting the fight. What gets you up in the morning? Like, what is the motivation? Like, where's the fire coming from? Because you're still doing it.
Man, you know what? That's a very good question. I'm gonna tell you. For me, it comes from the people. I love my people, and I get refueling and inspiration. I went to a birthday party last night just so I could be around a bunch of black folks dancing. It's not, you can't get any greater joy than that. And I knew I was gonna have fun. And I walked in there, and right away everybody just gave me love. It was love overtime. And I get inspiration from that. I get inspiration when Umar and Babatunde and I go on stage together. That brings me joy because I know what he can do. I know what he can do. And we work together like a hand in glove. I've told people, there's no better trio on the planet. I mean, we know how to work this thing together. And we can be at odds with each other. There are many times when Umar and I have had major conflicts with each other. But when it comes to that stage, we don't mess with each other. We deal with the stage. And we take it seriously.
So going back to, he's got me this place staying. I'm at the High Hotel. So I tell him I'm on the real last sport. So Doom tells, he comes down the other day, he's doing a workshop. So he said, listen, there's a brother from Ohio, and I'm going to let y'all decide whether he becomes the last sport now. So I had this one poem called Motherfucker. It was called Motherfucker. And Doom said, what's the poem? I said, it's called Motherfucker. He said, you going to do that? I said, yeah, I'm going to do the poem. So it was like, you know, Huey was a so-and-so motherfucker, Malcolm was a so-and-so motherfucker, you know, Martin Luther King was a so-and-so motherfucker. So he asked the crowd, you know, and said, you know, what do y'all think? He said, oh, he's a little rough, but yeah, make him a last poet. So Dylan said, okay, Omar, you're going to become a last poet, but you ain't never doing that motherfucking poem again. And I have not done that poem.
The poem didn't have any poetic merit whatsoever.
But I became the last poet with it, though.
But the fact is that what Umar had was something that nobody else in the group had. He had passion that you could feel.
Yeah.
When and because every time he said the word motherfucker, he got a rise from the people. And you could see that. I mean, he could touch you with his voice. His voice is like his father's horn. He could touch you with that. It was a sound of his voice that really had them going. And that's what I heard right away. That it was a special sound. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something. I think of all the people who folks try to imitate of the sound of the 60s, Umar bin Hassan is that person.
Somebody else told me that, too.
Because
somebody else told me that about 2 weeks ago, Dylan. Let's see.
we had this one brother named Professor. What was his name? He was God. What was his D? Yeah.
Yeah, you talking about them.
D knowledge.
Yeah, D knowledge.
D knowledge. Yeah, he was Dr. Gilbert. Somebody. He was a teacher at UCLA. Whatever. And I used to hate it when he did poetry because he was doing it in a replica of what he heard the 60s sound like. And he was really trying to imitate Umar. Because I used to say, I said, why is he doing it like that? But Umar has this thing where he goes high with his voice, and then he comes down, but he has this high tone that nobody can do but him. That's him. And you can't steal that. And I could feel, and I was always trying to say, why is he doing that? His sound became very relevant to the movement, and I could hear that when I first heard him. And his poetry got so much better over the years. It's ridiculous, because when this second go round of us being together now, this tour that you're seeing, when he came to my house, he set this up. He set this whole thing off. I had a jazz group. I had a theater company. I was teaching at Columbia University. I wasn't trying to be no last poet. I was through. That was in my past. And Umar says, "Yo, we got to take our crown back."
Yeah.
And I said, "We got to do what?" He said, these kids are talking. They don't know what they're talking about.
That's the second time now.
Bring it back around in the new generation.
Yeah, second time.
I want to ask how Baba joined the group.
How did what?
How did you become a last poet?
Well, I met Abiel Doom at, he came to Dance Theater Harlem. At the time, we had a percussion ensemble there. And Dance Theater Harlem was kind of modeling itself after the Harlem School of the Arts, which ironically, I've been a part of both organizations in ironic timing, you know what I'm saying? So I started there at Dance Theater Harlem with the percussion ensemble. And we had our own room, we had our own drums, we had our own little loft space. So he entered, and he brought his son Obad to study with us, myself and the other guys. And I said, "Oh man, that's Abiel Doom, right? I was like, So I said, "Yeah, And he looked at me. No. I'm not doing that. We just teach my son how to drum, right?" But that's how we be. I was like, last part,
Fanboy, they call it.
Because I grew up listening to the album. You know what I mean? I memorized it. It was like a Bible. So to see him actual in the flesh was like amazing for me. And in fact, I think one of Jamal pieces, when I was in high school, I took part of it and used it as one of my pieces, which everybody. Well, I kind of
He plagiarized our poem.
I'm saying, did you get caught?
I was trying to say that I was
He enhanced it.
enhancing it.
Yeah, he enhanced it.
But I didn't use the whole poem. I just used part of it because the rest of it I couldn't use.
You sampled it.
I sampled it, exactly. I took the words out of my mouth. So as I sampled it, then it got to a point where it was too strong, and it was from me. But that was just with the love that I had, the respect for the pieces. So as time went on, we had a relationship in terms of working together by chance because of the Harlem community. And then I think around the 90s, I met Omar through Kenyatte Abdul Rahman, who said, "Man, you want to play with the Last Poet?" I said, "Yeah," But I already was working with Abiel Doom, so I'm like saying, well, the Last Poets is the whole group, but whatever it may be. So that's how I started with I met Umar, and then we had a discussion, and he took to me, we took to each other.
Yeah, because the thing was, I keep talking about the guy. The Last Poets had this musical director. I didn't know about music fucking ain't. What is the music director? Me and Baba said, but this shit ain't working, man. I said, I know this shit ain't working. We just got to get back, man. And so me and Baba hooked up, and we started working again. Then we came and got doing. And said, "Listen, man, we got to do this." So that's
where the conversation between I have a drummer and he has a drummer.
Yeah.
And just by coincidence, it was the same person. So that's how I became. But at the time when the album was out, it was like I was still in the crib. I mean, I was about 12. And but that was like our shield, spear and shield of the time. Of you're hearing hip hop today now. You don't feel the spear and the shield. It wasn't articulated so well as it was then. So now we have a little bit. So now we have a different situation going on with the kids. But this was a time when people were more intellectual in the 60s and had a stronger voice.
We've met everyone except we have not said hello yet to Mr. Jamaluddin Takuma. Again, we won't necessarily go through the whole history. I encourage people to dig into this man's legacy, if you will. Welcome.
Yeah,
Good
thanks.
to see you. Good to see you. You're a Philadelphia cat.
I'm a Philadelphia guy, but I grew up I was born in Hempstead, Long Island.
Oh.
And then my folks came here to Philadelphia like after a month.
No, we didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, so after a month, I grew up here in Philadelphia. Grew up in North Philadelphia, around the projects. Grew up in the projects, around 11 Fenara Street projects. Temple University area.
Yeah.
Y'all know where that's at. You know, familiarizing myself with the Uptown Theater, which is right around the corner on Broad in Susquehanna. Saw everybody there and became involved with music. And first professional gig I had was Charles Erlin, and he fired me because
Why did he fire you?
Well, because I think at that particular time, we talking the '70s, so
Yeah.
a lot of the organ players, the music was changing. You know, the music was changing from more self-contained, singing groups that used to sing and, you know, this kind of step and all, to self-contained bands. And so, and then it moved to sort of a fusion concept in the 70s where they were mixing jazz and R&B and funk and soul and rock together. And so the whole idea of Charles Erling wanted to put a band together with a bass player. But because, mind you, all the early jazz trios were like Jimmy Smith and Charles Erling. They played organ. Matter of fact, they called Charles Erling the Mighty Burner here in Philadelphia, and he played the organ. But the organ players used to always play the bass part on their left hand or with their feet. And so he in his idea and quest for, bringing together this fusion of jazz and rock and funk and all of that together, he hired me as a bass player. So at 18 years old, just getting out of college, getting out of high school, which I got a scholarship to go to Berkeley, but I decided not to go because I wanted to be a musician that toured and played live, and I wanted to concentrate on that. We was on the tour for about a year, and one night at the Key Club in Newark, New Jersey, he says, "Okay, I'm going to pay you your money," and he says, "I'm not going to be able to use you anymore." And I was like, "Why?" I mean, every night the drummer and I, we killing it. Why? I just have to know. I mean, I'm 18 years old now. I have to know why I'm being fired because I didn't go to Berkeley. I had a free scholarship to go. I didn't go. I need to know why I'm being fired. He says, "Oh, your timing is off." I said, "Are you kidding me? We're killing it every night, the drummer and I." But what happened is that I used to come into the show with white shoes on. I used to have a gold guitar strap.
You got to look.
And then when I would do my little bass solo, the house would go crazy. So he was, taking us out, right? And that was not my intention. But mind you, I would go to Uptown Theater. I would see all those groups there. I had saw the Last Poets album. I saw that album, which still is so iconic in my mind. I still remember the dashikis, the Playboy shoes, the floaters, as we used to call them, the silk and wool knit pants, mohair pants that they used to wear. That we, so all of that. So that was always a part of me. So he tried to say that it was my timing, but basically it was that, and that was cool. But a week later, I got a call from Reggie Lucas and James Ntume, who were at that particular time with Miles Davis. Wow. And they said that there's a guy named Ornette Coleman who's putting together a band. He wants you to go. Would you like to go to Europe with him for 2 weeks? And I was like, sure. So I went to New York and, played with Ornette one song. He said, okay, you're in the band. Would you like to go to Europe? We were supposed to go to Europe for 2 weeks, and we wound up staying for 6 months.
One song.
That was one song.
Played one song.
One song, and I know I played it wrong.
Ornette Coleman said.
And I know I played it wrong also, and he was like, so that was that.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, so that's.
So how did you meet these fellas?
We were invited as a band to work with them some years ago in France, and they were doing a small tour for a reunion tour that they were doing. And that reunion tour, we did it. We had a couple of rehearsals also with Kenyatta, who's passed on now, who was a percussionist, and Robert Irving III, the keyboardist, and Ronald Shannon Jackson, who's a drummer, who passed.
I got a picture of all of us
You
on
got
my phone.
Oh, really?
In France.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
got a
That's
picture
cool.
on my phone.
So we did that little tour, but I was noticing something about that show. I mean, even though it wasn't all together, it was a show, but I was saying to myself, because I was always behind them, and I was saying to myself, damn boy, if we could just, if I could just get my hands with these guys to kind of formulate something that I know that they are about. In other words, they had that band, but it wasn't a complete show, and it should have been it should be all about them. And that was my idea, even in the studio. I mean, we put together the band, and also I knew I came from that same period that they came from as a musician. So I know that they had got in the studio with people before. They were working with machines and this and that and the other. I said, no, we're gonna cut this record. We're gonna cut this record just like we used to do back in the day, live. And we cut all those 14 tracks in one day, and
Wow.
they came in and cut all of their vocals in one day.
Wow.
So that's how it worked, because it's an old school way of doing that. You know, as a producer, you have to know what you want, and then as a producer, it cannot be about you as a producer. It has to be about the artist, and it was always about them. And when you hear this record, you can hear them coming out. It's all them, you know, and the music just sort of mirrors that, you know.
I agree, and for the record, the album is called Toxic Times, due out this spring. It's so, I mean, everything you said, I can hear, I can understand. And it's a lush album. It's almost, you could listen to it. Tell me if you agree. Actually, I mean, you could listen to it and not even know.
That it was going
who the
through.
last poets are.
Okay,
what
yeah,
the
yeah.
history is.
Yeah.
And you could enjoy it,
You can enjoy it, yeah.
right? And
you get
yet,
you get a message. You get that message.
all the
And
power
it's some
is there.
heavy. It's some, like you say, the record is very lush, and it was done within a certain budget, and that's pretty much how it worked. You know, because sometimes when there's not a lot of money in a project, my idea is that you still have to make that record sound like that record cost $1 million. You have to make that record sound like it sounds like $1 million. That's why when we did that piece with Dune and the acoustic guitars and you wouldn't normally think that would be the Last Poets. I mean, with a viola and acoustic guitar, or a track that's just so, you know, just so grooving, and the record is just grooving all throughout.
That's it. So you can listen to it just for the groove,
Right.
and you can tune out for a second,
Right.
and then you can come back to it and get the incredible
Right.
poetry
Right.
and message.
Right.
And then I also noticed that the selection of tracks. So we talked earlier about the struggles and resistance and the fight. It seems to me that it's one thing to bear witness and to write the poetry about the struggles and history and the realities of those struggles, and those songs are important. Those poems are important to push against the existing power, right? But then there's the, do you get stuck just pushing against, and what's the way out? And there are songs on this record that move to a higher level and transcend. They recognize the struggle, and they recognize the need for, like, very seriously addressing and speaking the truth, but also then there are songs that move to a solution.
I'm gonna let the guys speak on that, but I'm just gonna say the first thing is that when we first initially thought about the album, it was entitled Transcend. But in light of like all what's going on now, everything being toxic as it is, it just sort of moved into that. But you do have those tracks on the record that sort of it breaks out of all that toxicity.
It moves above.
It goes above,
right.
and it just emanates love.
And as
also.
humans, we need that.
But see,
Right.
see-
We
see,
need a way out.
The most beautiful thing about this event right here, see, me and Jamal Dean, we got into a thing during the time, and I got mad. I never spoke to him again.
So I became the last poet.
Yeah, so we just, I don't know, it just something happened. And I don't know what I got mad about. Or we was at it. It was basically me. So I ain't spoke to him since then. I haven't seen him since this was done. So when Abiel Doom called me and said, "Yeah, man," he said, "We got this album." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, Jamal." I said, "Jamal Dean."
That record?
No, that's what I did, that record. And so when I came here today, and I saw him, and he was smiling, and it was just good to see him again, because all the time that we've been apart, this is about what, almost about 2 years, I mean?
Yeah.
About 2 years, we ain't
It was
talked
a
to
little
each
bit
other.
more.
We haven't talked to each other. So when I came here and saw him today, I hugged him, because he's a brother. He's my brother. And I don't know, I'm older now, whatever I did or whatever I caused that. I'm sorry I did that, but I go through shit sometimes, Scorpio, But then to sit down and hear what he had put together, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad to be here. I mean, I don't even like whiskey. You know, I don't drink whiskey, but I feel so good.
Let's edit that. Let's edit that out.
But it makes me feel good to be here and to know that y'all are behind this. Because them words and that music and that album, that's where we're supposed to be. And to know that it's been done the right way, and you know, we weren't really, actually a part of it, but it's been done so well and so beautiful. I'm just happy, man. I'm happy about that, man, because this is who the last poets are.
Yeah.
This album defines who we have been for 50 years.
That's right,
It
exactly.
defines
culmination.
who we are and what we've been through for 50 years.
Wow.
It's a special thing, man. I'm
It
really
is.
happy about it.
It's a match.
It is.
Because there was an attempt made to do something that was going to take us to another space. We were trying to make a connection with reggae music, and we had this producer. We have this producer from London,
Yeah.
and he got supposedly a reggae band together, and
They're working on it.
and yeah, they have good intentions, all right.
They're working on it.
But the fact is that neither Umar nor I could feel what was happening, and we tried. We did give it we gave it a good try.
And see, for the last week, me and June have almost like been bemoaning the fact that we got to go over there and march and try to work with them again.
Right.
And because I said,
Yeah, because we don't particularly look forward to it.
No, we don't.
And
You're just setting the time that we can air this now.
well, the bottom line is
Just
that,
pushed it back
that
a couple months.
hearing this brings us right back to the place that we know we should be.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of it because
I am too.
because this lets me know that we haven't lost what we've got, and that because he amplifies it with what he did. The mix of it is perfect, and the poetry is ideal. I mean, I was in tears. There has been nothing that I have participated in God knows when, that has caused me to tear up. And this, I wasn't looking forward to crying today. And I think that some people who have not heard the last poets, when they hear that, they're going to tear up because it is rich with feelings. And you can have all the mind power in the world, but if feelings are not met, then you're not doing very much. The feeling is there.
And when I saw Jamal the other day, I told him right away, I said, "You don't give up, do you? You don't give up." But I meant that. I mean, to know that he had been working on this for this long, and he still had us in his hearts and in his thoughts. That's what you call a brother. That's not only a friend, but a friend, somebody who loves what you do and respects what you do. Because for him to be still with this, and then y'all have it now, I'm amazed, man. Cause,
I had to ask who was on the percussion to some of the stuff. It was so pronounced, you know.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you don't, you know, when people
but I'm saying
you're mixing it, they don't mix it right.
I'm telling you.
I wasn't bringing nobody else with no percussion.
And
no way.
Who's on the bongos? That's you.
And the thing about it is that
It's all yours.
it's just the work is just great.
It is.
I really feel very, very good about this because it's definitely a statement that we needed to make, and it was done. It's done right. And you know what? And I think we all realize nothing much happens without conflict.
Yeah, that's true.
So the conflicts that have occurred between Umar and I have resulted in diamonds.
Yeah.
The conflicts that occurred between Umar and Jamal have resulted in a diamond. And so we're sitting up here with a diamond mine. And I mean, I'm really proud of that because this is something that we can really hang our hats on. I mean, I don't want to leave the planet today or tomorrow. I hope I'm going to be here for a little while longer. But if for some reason I had to go, this is a testament.
Yeah, that's the way to go. That's the way to leave out here with this. I can leave out of here and just.
This is a testament. I could rest in my grave with a smile on my face because this is a statement plus, and it's saying it just the way it needs to be said. And I'm so proud of this because we've enjoyed having Bill Laswell, and both Umar and I both have considered him to be the best producer that we've had in terms of the work that we've done. He's done
He's
some.
become a great friend.
He's a great friend and he's a good producer. Tony is okay. He's like Baba Sunday said, he's trying. It's a nice idea. and I've always said that it made sense mentally to try to join reggae music with us because reggae music is supposed to be rebel music and
movement,
rebel
yeah.
poets, and it sounds like a match. But you got to have the right musicians.
Because like me and Dude were talking about how at 70, where we're at, see, this is where we're supposed to be at 70 years old.
Right.
What's down there in that bay, that's where we're supposed to be. That's what makes us feel joy that we've been through all the 50 or so years. I mean, because that album makes us, we've grown. Everybody who will listen to that know, ooh, when did they do this and how did this get here? Not knowing that it was already been done, but the beauty and the strength, and then the music just does things to our voices. It caresses our voices and lifts our voices. It's like it serenades our voices. It's like we need that music behind those words and those poems in this album. It's magnificent, man. It's something that I never thought I would get to see, but it's here and it's beautiful. And I'm happy about it. I'm really happy about
I am
this.
too.
Man.
I really am.
I'm really happy about
I
it.
think that the credit goes to
And
Jamal.
the thing, and let me say this about the company. When I first was told by Jamal Dean's wife, Rahima, that Rope-A-Dope was a label, I almost laughed.
I was talking to me and him back
I said,
about that over here.
I said, you got to be kidding.
Rope-A-Dope.
Rope-A-Dope,
Yeah.
some scheme that Ali came up with in the ring.
That's what I asked him. I said, you think that's what my league?
When he was fighting George Foreman, the Rope-A-Dope, are you kidding me? And this is for real. And then Jamal T says, oh yeah, I know you got a gig in Philly because I told him about the gig because I want him to know we're going to be in Philly. And he says, well, can you come in a little earlier because Rope-A-Dope wants to do an interview. So I said, I need to meet these people called Rope-A-Dope. This sounds so phenomenal, so fantastic. Rope-A-Dope.
So how do y'all use that conceptually? What was the conception behind using that?
Well, I wasn't there at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
but certainly a reference to Muhammad Ali. Simply just the bravado and the statement of arrival and the presentation of, pay no attention to the little man behind the curtain. Boom, that big power thing.
Yeah.
Ali said the fight is won or lost long before you enter the ring. So Rope-A-Dope is like, we're here, but also a reference, and it's been used over the years as, we're as an independent record label, we're taking punches.
Yeah.
And all we have to do is take enough punches
Yeah.
and wait,
Then you
and
can
then
knock them
we'll
out.
win.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
That's
a lot of punches.
That's
I
what
got that.
that's what I had to put in my head. How does that fit with a label? Because with the Rope-A-Dope, Angelo Dundee did not understand what Ali was doing. He kept he said, champ, get off the ropes, get off the ropes. And Ali knew what he was doing.
Yep.
And he knew that this cat, because when he saw Foreman fight, he had visions of Sonny Liston. Because he was imitating the way Foreman hit the same way Sonny Liston would hit, like a big mummy. He was imitating him. And Ali, and during the training, Bundini said that Ali had extra work done on his body. He said, hit me in my body, hit me in my body. Ali had in his mind what he wanted to do. He was brilliant.
He understood the nature of power,
Right.
and he understood how to get around it,
Exactly.
and how to win.
But
And those are, that one image.
But
We
you know
have
who-
it some here.
But you know who wrote all those
of him-
poems? His
His
wife
wife wrote all those poems, yeah.
Kamala.
Kalila.
Wow.
I mean, she's emailing me all the time. She's a big woman now, but she wrote all those poems.
Yeah, we had a long
Float like a
conversation.
butterfly, all that.
Yeah.
When she was 13 years old, she heard
Yeah.
it. She said when she first heard her, she was 13, and she cried the whole day. She
I think Angela wrote that one.
She said these guys are speaking my heart and soul, because she'd always written poetry, and then to hear the last poets, she couldn't believe we existed, and she got my phone number. We had an hour conversation on the phone, and I kept saying to her, I said, I can't believe I'm talking to Ali's first wife. And she says, I can't believe I'm talking to one of the last poets.
But that's what she said about me, because I had hung out with her and
Mutual
Ali
respect.
in Indiana. When I forgot about this was back in the day. She said, "Your mom, you remember we was in Indiana? You hung out with me and Ali?" And I forgot all about this. So she said, "Yeah, I remember we was in this hotel and Ali was Ali was, even in his presence, man, there was something about him that made him special. Just being in his presence. And he respected brothers. He always respected brothers. He never tried to make him look, because he liked the last post, because he was quoting niggas scared of revolution. But I had forgot about that, man. I had forgot. So we what?
Another Midwesterner.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Of course.
It's Louisville, that's the South. It's not the South. That's Kentucky. It's right outside, right across the river from Ohio. It is the Midwest, basically.
It's in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's southern Midwest, but it's
Southern
Midwest.
So Muhammad Ali is a great representation of somebody who overcame the repression and the system to a certain extent. He played it. He did it well. I remember as a child, there were leaders. I remember hearing about the Black Panthers, Bobby Seale. I remember hearing about H-Rap Brown. I remember seeing Ali and feeling the power. And that led me to dig in to try to understand what was going on. And then there's a gap. We live in a time where so many leaders in the black community have been either, drank the Kool-Aid, if you will,
Right.
to become millionaires and billionaires, some, right? And these should be the de facto leaders in a way. The church's role has been diminished. And so now, what I like about what we do here, to me, the musicians, the poets, are the leaders for this new time.
I believe that, and
So-
I believe that. There's something on us now that all of us have to get to and understand. Because people need us now. They need our
do.
passion.
More than ever.
They need our truth.
They do.
They need our courage to stand up and be honest and real with people. See, because they're missing so much of that. There's no more courage in the leaders. They all just milk-sapped and fucking lied. So they need, even though you can be halfway mad, but people will go to the poet and they'd rather see a poet than go to church sometime and hear the priest, because at least the poet is amongst them. The poet's always amongst the people. And so we do. They need. And see, this album is like, this album, so you can't listen to this album and not put it on the radio. You got to put this on the radio for people to hear this. It's just opening itself up. See, this is going.
And what Umar says about the people needing the poets at this time, it really resonates when we have. Lately these gigs in Europe. One thing I will say, there are a lot of times, like when we did the Edinburgh Book Fair in last August. They have a section where they call Conversations with the Last Poets. The place is never less than standing room only. And I've always wondered, how could that be? We're not there to do poetry. We're just there to talk. But people have questions.
Yeah.
And they want to hear from us what we have to say. Felipe and I, one of the other last poets, were asked to do something at the Apollo. And I was not asked to do any poetry. It was just a conversation. Now, Felipe is a political analyst.
Yeah.
He has got he can break down any of the isms better than anybody I know. Communism, socialism, communism, capitalism. And he broke down the whole blueprint for Donald Trump. And what he said was exactly what Trump is doing.
What's happened. Yeah.
It's exactly. And I come in with the whole nother home feeling. And then we had Chuck D, who was the head leader of Public Enemy, and he was the moderator. And we were going to be at the Apollo stage, and I'm saying it's going to be in the cafe where they have about 200-300 people. It's not going to be. I can handle it. And then I found out it was going to be on the main stage. And my son came in from Texas, and he said, "How do you feel, Pops, about tomorrow?" And I said, he asked me how I felt. I do an open house in my house every Sunday. He said, "How you feel?" I said, "How I feel about what he says about tomorrow." I said, I'm going to be honest, Pharaoh. I'm scared to death. And I was. He says, and then one of the guys in the house said, "You scared, dude? Get the hell out of here. That's impossible. You're on stage all the time." And then Pharaoh said, "Pops, you should be scared." He said, "That's your humanity." He says, "Because you want to say the right thing." and you know that this is a moment.
It matters.
And the fact is that, man,
It matters greatly.
that place was sold out.
Beautiful.
It was unbelievable. I could not believe the audience, the crowd. And Felipe says, listen, I've known you for 50 years, and I've never heard you speak like that. And that's all I talked about. I talked about the God in us and how love is the major weapon that we have. And with those two things, we can't lose.
But like I understand, basically, when it comes down to human beings, there's just three things that we really want and desire. We want to be loved, we want to be respected, and we want to be appreciated.
There it is.
You know, it's whether, no matter who we are. I mean,
No matter what your sex preference, your race.
You want to be loved, you want to be respected, and you want to be appreciated.
You know, listen to some of the younger hip hoppers now, or hip hoppers. They ain't so young. I can hear them trying to articulate some of the.
And they are too, about
They're
they're
trying, but they don't have the
The
skills
details.
or the intellect.
The system doesn't allow.
Thank you.
for them. For
Thank-
them.
that's
Well,
what it
that's
is.
true. That's true
That's
for
true.
the public. So I
Because-
mean, there may be stuff I'm not hearing, but
There's so much money in it.
That's
There's so much
true.
money in it.
Yeah.
Come on, that's
They're not
it.
gonna let
They
us-
can't
People
get
that are
past
attracted
that.
to do that.
They
You
can't
go
get
through this
past that.
filter, and then
Yep.
if you go to Atlanta, fly to Atlanta, and you see the kids coming in on the planes, and then you see them leaving, they're either sad or they got their deal. And you know,
Oh, I
and
see what you're saying, yeah.
they're
But
so
that's a-
young,
it's a
they're
real
so
block.
inexperienced, they haven't lived in times like
No,
you guys
no,
grew
they
up in,
didn't, you know.
and that we as a world are in right now. They haven't
Right.
experienced any of that, so I
Yeah.
don't know how they don't even have anything to draw from either.
They don't. They
You know.
really don't.
Well, I'm going to be very interested to see the response from this CD, because I believe that on its own, and I know you'll have a publicity team or whatever. I mean, I hope so, but I really think that this is the kind of product that almost sells itself. I don't think you don't need to prod this. You don't need to kind of set up a whole bunch of stuff. Just let it be heard by
The
one or
right
two,
people.
by some people.
We're going to need our viewers to be active and tell their friends,
And I
and
think that-
everybody get on it.
I think it'll do well personally.
So I just want to wrap up here, and I want to thank each of you individually for sticking with it, for doing what you do, for being a voice, and for including other people in that, putting the message out there. I definitely have to give great thanks to Jamal Takuma for bringing this together and producing this incredible record. There's going to be details in the comments, and for trusting us here at Rope-a-Dope with it. Toxic Times from the Last Poets is due out this spring. Go to ropeadope.com for details. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, you, and you too, and you.